What if the thing you loved the most was the very thing killing everyone around you? In the winter of 1932, the snow in Gristleheim, an old village nestled in the valley of the Carpathians, was quieter than ever. It wasn't because fewer people walked the cobbled streets. It was because those who did walked faster, kept their heads down, and whispered under breath when they passed the old clockmaker's shop on Grell Street. People said it started with the boy who slipped on the bridge and cracked his skull wide open. Others claimed it was when old Mira fell into her own fireplace, but everyone agreed. The trouble began when the clock was made. Rudek was just 23 when he finished it. A masterwork of carved mahogany, winding copper gears, and a centerpiece of black obsidian that shimmered like water, even in the dark. It was tall, nearly 7 feet, with hands that moved silently, gracefully, like it was breathing. Rudek had worked on it for a year straight, day and night, no breaks. He said it came to him in a dream, the design, that he'd never felt more certain of anything in his life. People loved Rudek. He wasn't like the others. He didn't drink, didn't gossip. He read poetry, kept quiet, and gave toys to children who didn't have any. But after the clock was placed in the center of his shop, things started to change. Not just around town, in Rudek too. Accidents came in slow waves at first. A chimney collapsed during supper, killing an entire family. A horse trampled its owner in the middle of Mass. Then it became illness, the kind no doctor could explain. Young people wasting away. Old people screaming about seeing their dead loved ones standing by their beds at night. Some folks noticed the pattern. The mayor's wife counted the days and realized that every time the clock struck a new hour, someone in town suffered. At first, they thought it was coincidence, but by the 7th death, even the priest stopped calling it God's will. People begged Rudek to take the clock down. He refused, said it was the best thing he'd ever made, that it was perfect, that it was alive. It was the apprentice, Mirk, who first saw the truth in Rudek's eyes. Mirk was only 16. Rudek had taken him in when Mirk's parents died of frostbite the winter before. He swept the shop floors, refilled oil for the smaller clocks, and listened to Rudek's strange muttering when he thought no one was around. Mirk began to notice that the obsidian at the heart of the big clock never stayed the same. Some days it looked clear, others cloudy. One night when Mirk passed the shop at dusk, he saw a reflection in the obsidian that wasn't his own. Rudek stopped sleeping. He began locking the shop door even during daylight. People said they could hear him talking to someone or something inside. Then the disappearances started. 3 children, a school teacher, a farmer's wife. No blood, no signs, just gone. On the night of October 9th, the town gathered outside Rudek's shop. A storm was rolling in. Thunder cracked the sky in half as rain turned the streets to mud. They demanded answers. Rudek opened the door slowly, his hands stained with oil, his eyes bloodshot and sunken. "It chooses," he whispered, "not me." They threw stones, shattered the glass, but no one dared step inside, not until the clock struck midnight. That night, Mirk made a decision. He had been watching, waiting, afraid. But when he saw what Rudek had become, what the town was turning into, he knew what he had to do. He waited until Rudek finally passed out in the back room, a bottle in his hand. The storm raged on. Lightning painted the sky bone white. Mirk entered the shop quietly, hammer in hand. He stood before the clock. It stared back. The gears moved without sound. The pendulum swung like a heartbeat. Mirk stepped closer, raised the hammer. The clock struck 12. He slammed the hammer down, and it shattered. Not the clock, the hammer. Pieces of metal flew across the room. Mirk fell backward, and then the hands of the clock stopped. Time paused. Everything stopped. Rain froze midair. Lightning hung in the sky, motionless. Rudek's chest didn't rise. Then time reversed. Mirk blinked, and he was back in the shop doorway, hours earlier, watching the storm begin. He tried again. He waited, broke in, lifted a crowbar this time. Midnight. He swung. The same thing happened. Time broke, then reversed. He was stuck. The same night. Over and over. Each time he tried to destroy the clock, it threw him back to the beginning. But each loop he saw more. The reflections in the obsidian began to show faces. Not his own, not Rudek's. Faces of people he'd never met, screaming, crying, begging. They weren't gone. The missing weren't dead. They were inside the clock. Mirk began to hear whispers, first faint, then louder. They spoke in broken words, voices layered on top of each other. "Free us," they said. "Stop the turning. Stop the hour." On the fifth loop, Rudek caught him. The old man wasn't asleep. He'd been waiting. "You think you can outwit time?" Rudek said, eyes glowing with something inhuman. "I tried, boy. I made it. But I didn't control it. It controls me." Mirk tried to run, but the door vanished behind him. He was trapped in the shop with Rudek and the clock. "You can't stop it," Rudek said. "You can only feed it or join it." The storm howled louder than before. The clock struck midnight again. The obsidian pulsed like a living heart. And this time, something stepped out of it. It looked like a man, but its shape kept shifting. One moment tall, then hunched. Its skin rippled like candle wax in firelight. Its eyes weren't eyes at all, but deep, swirling pits of darkness. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Mirk couldn't move. The air around him pressed in, thick and wrong, like time itself was crushing his lungs. Rudek dropped to his knees and began to weep. "I did what you asked," he whispered to the thing. "I built it. I fed it. I gave it time. Isn't that enough?" The thing didn't answer. Instead, it reached out a hand, long fingers stretching far too far, and touched Rudek's face. Rudek gasped, then he simply vanished. No scream, no final breath, just gone, folded into the dark. Mirk stumbled back, his heart pounding in his ears. The hands of the clock began to spin wildly, faster and faster, the hours melting into one another. With every turn, he could feel the day repeat. The same footsteps outside, the same thunder, the same cries in the wind. He had one chance left. He knew it. One final try. The voice returned, clearer now. "You must break time," from inside. Mirk turned to the clock, its obsidian center now a swirling portal. Inside it, he saw them, faces pressed against invisible glass. The missing, wide-eyed, still alive, somehow suspended between moments. He stepped forward, closer. One step, two. Then he was inside. It wasn't darkness. It was everywhere and everywhen. The clock wasn't a machine. It was a door, a prison, a god. Time didn't move the way it should. He stood in a village that burned, then froze, then turned to stone. He saw Rudek, young again, carving the clock with bleeding fingers. He saw himself, over and over, trying to destroy it. Each version of him failed, but something was different now. He was in the mechanism, not outside. He was part of the clock. He could feel the gears, the rhythm, the structure of time itself, and he could break it. Mirk reached toward the obsidian, now just floating in space. Inside it, he saw a younger Rudek, a kind boy building the clock with hope, not hate. He understood then. The curse hadn't started with the clock. It had started with intention, with desire. Rudek had wanted to stop time. He wanted to preserve beauty, youth, love. But time doesn't allow bargains. It takes what it wants. And when someone tries to trap it, it takes more. Mirk made a choice. He let go of himself. He stopped fighting the loop. He stopped fighting time. And instead he offered something no one ever had, his soul, not in exchange, but in surrender. The obsidian cracked. A thunderclap shook the world. And then, silence. The villagers of Gristleheim woke to a new morning. The sun was bright. No one remembered the disappearances, the illnesses, the accidents. Rudek's shop was empty now, abandoned, like no one had lived there in years. The clock was gone. Mirk was gone. But every hour, on the dot, the bell in the church tower chimed once more. 12 deep, clean tones. And for the first time in months, people smiled when they heard it. Only one person remembered. An old woman named Zlata, who swore she saw a boy in her dreams each night, standing beside a massive clock that ticked not with sound, but with silence. His name was Mirk, she would whisper to the children. He gave us time again, all of it, and far beyond the fabric of time, in a space no clock could touch. Mirk stood alone, watching the gears of the world turn smoothly. He was neither alive nor dead, neither young nor old. He was the balance, because someone had to keep time honest, and he'd chosen to be the one, forever.